Good afternoon, everyone. This is Mike O'Malley here with the severe slash winter weather outlook for November 25th, 2020, recorded around 2:20 p.m. Eastern Time. This is mainly going to focus here on the upcoming potential for a rather significant winter storm event across portions of the Midwest and a potential severe weather threat unfolding across the Southeast, not only today, but also in towards next week. So, what we're looking at here is the GFS forecast. This is the 12Z run valid for 1 p.m. this afternoon, so about an hour and a half ago at this point. And you notice that one thing we have already is this it's a very shallow cutoff low here. This is now becoming an occluded front here. You can almost see that the thickness gradient here definitely becoming less defined the further south you get. You kind of space these thickness lines out. So your front is located somewhere roughly in back in here, and you have a warm front extending northward and an occluded front across portions of Illinois right now, and that is wrapping all the way back into this circulation back and through here. It's not a very strong circulation. Now, we have some showers and thunderstorms that are breaking out across not only across portions of Ohio, but across the southeast as well, with a squall line right now. Not a very potent squall line, certainly nothing like we saw last night in Dallas and Arlington, where we had some fairly significant tornadoes into that region. Now, if we go forward in time, we're going to see that we actually dry out for a little bit across most of the United States. You can see really the only sort of precipitation is generally going to be across Vancouver and British Columbia and over the next 48 hours before we finally get the resurgence of a warm front. Now, this is where things start to get interesting because here we are by 96 hours. This is by Sunday, so we're going into the weekend, really past Thanksgiving. We can see what we have here is the resurgence of a cold front or a warm front rather. If we go to the 2 meter dew points here, we can kind of see that we dry out across most of the United States. Right now, the dew points across most of the United States by Sunday morning are relatively low. Anywhere basically from the Rockies to Montana to Pennsylvania and Maine. Really, though, the only high dew point values are going to be across the southeast coastal states, from coastal Texas through Florida, obviously, and then south from there. But what you'll be wanting to watch is this resurgence here. You notice how the moisture begins to rapidly surge northward as we go through the day Sunday. And here we are by Sunday night, by 7 p.m. Sunday night. This moisture return is now stretching all the way. The edge of the bulk of moisture is sitting over portions of really eastern Mississippi and southern Alabama. We can already see some of this moisture being stretched all the way into parts of Kentucky as well. These dew point values have come up even into Tennessee and Kentucky, this big surge of moisture. Now you can kind of see what we have going on here. We're going to have a front that's going to develop. And if we actually go to the upper air dynamics, what we can take a look at here is the 700, actually we'll go to the 500 millibar heights and vorticity. So what we're looking at here is the vorticity, which is shaded, and the relative height lines, which are these lines in through here, these isobar lines. Basically, these are just lines of equal pressure, constant pressure. And what we'll be seeing right now, this is the base of the base analysis, is that we have a ridge right now over South Florida and the Keys, and this has been producing some relatively nice, cooler weather across Florida today. It's not that hot out today. Across portions of Florida. It's in the lower 80s, so it's not too bad. And then we also have towards the north, we can see our surface circulation, our cutoff low, and the associated front that was positioned right at about in here at that time. Now, as we go forward with time, what you'll notice is that this starts to really come out here, and this starts to abate away. This area of low pressure really becomes very ill-defined and moves off the coast there. Now, what you'll notice here is we have a very long teleconnection between this new area. This is a cutoff circulation, and the apparent trough and area of low pressure towards the north. You can see these height lines fall fairly substantially once you start getting up into Kansas and Nebraska. You go northward, these height lines fall off and they drop off like a cliff. And that is because what's going on here is we can actually see the evolution of exactly what's going on. This is right now going to turn, this is basically a trough like this. You notice the southern axis right here is going to get left behind, and that is because this trough towards the north is actually moving faster, and the southern part is the initial point on which this is going to break away. So we're going to have a breakaway low, and that starts to create into a cutoff low. And notice here, if we go back out to hour 84, if we go out to Sunday morning, this is 1 a.m., this is why the moisture return is going to happen. You've got an area of low pressure sitting out here across Oklahoma and Texas. The moisture in the low levels is now going to begin to rapidly increase northward. You're going to see the dew points rapidly increase. And if we actually take a sounding out here in parts of Louisiana, you can see that we have a fairly strong kind of curved hodograph structure like so. And you can see these winds are really shifting quite around rapidly out basically of the south, and then they go more towards the east at the very lowest levels. So you have some fairly significant wind, and you can actually see this dew point beginning to rapidly increase with time. If we back this out to just a forecast prior, we'll go to forecast prior, you'll notice that these winds are rapidly changing around here. And if we keep kind of going back, you can definitely see where our dew points are definitely coming up here. So this is a good sign for the moisture return across that area. And then we finally will start to get kind of a weird interaction occurring as this area of low pressure begins to actually dissipate off. We get a secondary trough coming through here. This is once again going to kind of break away. It's going to cut off. You'll see that happen, develop into a very powerful cutoff low, and actually kind of do a do-se-do with this area of low pressure and this big bowling ball upper level system across the south right now. Now, this has led towards a couple of things that could happen. We could see either a very powerful squall line coming out across the southeast here, mainly across Florida, which could produce some severe weather, or we could also see a fairly big winter weather setup across the Midwest and the Ohio Valley region. Now, if we look here at the European forecast, the 12Z run here, we notice that we can kind of see similar things happen. We get a very powerful squall line that ends up developing here. Again, a 990 millibar low sitting just north of Georgia, and a fairly powerful cold front and an associated area of convection and a squall line coming across Florida, Georgia, and South Carolina at the moment. And on the backside of this, a very powerful snow machine back here. So this has definitely led to the theory that there could be a fairly significant and substantial snow machine maker later in the week across portions, really into early next week across portions of the Ohio Valley. You can see just tremendous amounts of heavy snow. And then at the same time, you've got the squall line and cold front kind of working all the way back. This is now becoming included. But the values here, if we look here on the GFS, and we actually look here at the snow here coming off the GFS, you can actually see that the GFS is somewhat similar, albeit it is a little bit, it's a little bit slower, but this definitely, produces a fair amount of snow for portions of the Ohio Valley, maybe even some snow all the way down into parts of Georgia and Alabama if this were to 100% verify, which it obviously won't. But this could set up for a fairly significant snow event across portions of the Tennessee and Ohio Valley region. And if we actually go back here and look at the European, the 500 millibar heights, you'll see a similar evolution where this becomes a fairly powerful cutoff low. And you just see how fairly substantial this troughing is. And this very fast jet stream flow, this subtropical jet over parts of South Florida and Florida as a whole could be fairly substantial because if you look at the bulk shear values, and you kind of just run these bulk shear values out, you'll notice that these bulk shear values are more than impressive. You've got bulk shear that is approaching 85 to 90 knots. Just for kind of timing's sake, the precipitation, let's see if that would be, yeah, that would be, within kind of this range through here. So we'll kind of try to time this up here, but you'll really be able to know that that is fairly substantial. If we go back out here, kind of 114, and look at where that would be, this would be 50 to 60 knots of bulk shear across the area as this jet stream is kind of dipping down with the trough. So there could definitely be some severe weather across the southeast, into next week. And if we actually look here at the GFS forecast, and we actually look at much of the same thing, the bulk shear, and we go out in time, you'll see that this bulk shear really begins to increase, and that could definitely lead towards a fairly potent severe weather event across parts of the southeast, and also lead towards a fairly potent winter weather scenario across the north. So, it's certainly something that we're going to be watching. Not a incredibly high probability at the moment. You can see the GFS forecast really surging those dew points northward by the week, and this is hour 120 here. And again, if we just look here at that jet stream, that's 40, 50, 60 knots. So certainly the potential is there for a fairly potent severe weather or winter weather event towards next week. So it's going to be very important to kind of watch that. Again, we'll watch the ensembles. We're going to have to wait and see what happens. But other than that, right now, nothing set in stone. But just keep checking back and monitoring the situation. Again, nothing is completely official yet, but we may be watching for a fairly potent event towards early next week. All right. With that being said, I hope you have a great rest of your afternoon and evening. Of course, I am Michael O'Malley. I'll talk to you guys again some more tomorrow.